Okay, hello YouTube, this is ChardarYuGiOh. I just got first place at Locals playing Pendulum Magicians under the February 5th ban list. This isn't really a final list, this is just something that I threw together to test out and see if the deck was still viable. I played with it on Dueling Book a lot yesterday and it seemed pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and do this deck profile, and if you have anything you'd suggest I try or change in this, put it down in the comments, I'd really appreciate it. So we played 3 Wisdom Eye, 3 Purple Poison, 3 Harmonizing Magician. Basically, I'm just maxing out on all the level 4 magicians that you have left. Black Fang still doesn't really do anything for the deck because you're link summoning, you're never destroying it or putting anything in the graveyard. 2 Oath Dragon. I was playing 2 Oath Dragon before, even when we had Double Iris, but I still think this is really important. It's level 6 to get you to Naruto, and adding magicians back to your hand for a larger Pendulum summon is still really important. It's probably the best low scale in the deck. Play 3 Astrograph, 3 Chronograph, Time Gazer, and a Stargazer. You really depend on your Electromites to start making your plays. You have to hit that. So opening any normal summonable Pendulum monster you have, and then a Chronograph or an Astrograph gets you to that. Play 2 Luster. This is a high scale that you can get off Duelist Alliance because we don't have Double Iris anymore. And it's a good way to trigger your magician effects. If you start with an Astrograph, a Luster, and something else, you can set off the Astrograph, get a +1, and get a Pendulum monster out, again, without using a normal summon. 2 Curtain Raiser. These aren't quite as good as Chronograph and Astrograph because you don't gain any cards off them, but it's another starter to get you to Electromite. To replace Joker, I'm trying out the Darkworm engine. A lot of people were playing this even before we lost Joker, but now that we don't have Joker, this is the only Pendulum monster you can normal summon and gain meaningful card advantage off of it. 0 is a low scale, which the deck already had trouble getting to, and it's level 7, so it can help you get to your Oddeyes Absolute Dragon. So far, I've been very impressed with these cards. Obviously, it's not as good as Joker, it's not as flexible, but it's still been pretty strong. We don't have Max C, but I still played 3 Ashes. I like to try to fit in Ghost Ogres to get more hand traps in here, but today I just played 3 Ashes. 1 Foolish Burial. This combos with the Supreme King Dragon Darkworm. Foolish Burial, send this to grave. You have no monsters, special summon it back. It's a starter for Electromite, and this gets its search even if you special summon it. So you get a low scale off of it, a monster without using normal summon. 3 Duelist Alliance. Without Double Iris, it's a lot harder to get to the Trap or the Star Pendulum Graph, so playing 3 of this felt more important. I did play 3 Pot of Desires because you don't have as many critical 1-ofs in this deck as you did before. The old list for space usually only played 1 time Pendulum Graph, 2 Star Pendulum Graph. I only really got burned by this once when I banished both of my Lusters. I needed Duelist Alliance for a high scale. So far it's been okay. It's risky. I don't know if I'll keep it at 3 or cut it down. But so far it's been pretty good, and it does the same thing where it loads up your hand so you get a bigger Pendulum summon. Monster Reborn is back, so we played a Monster Reborn. It's not great in this deck. You never really load up your grave, and there's not really anything big enough that you want to get back. You might bring back something big of your opponent's, but played it anyway. So this was the 41st card. I had a list that I wanted, and I threw Monster Reborn in to try it out. 1 Star Pendulum Graph and 2 of the Trap. I'm playing 2 of the Trap now because we don't have Double Iris to search it, and I want to make sure that I have this because it's still arguably the best card in the deck. I mean, Electromite's probably the best card in the deck, but this is still the card that controls your games and keeps you alive. Extra deck, played 2 Electromites. I pre-ordered these, they're not here yet, so we're playing OCG copies, but that's fine. Decode Talker and Skull Dread. All this does is gives you a way to send your Absolute Dragon to the grave. This, there's a few combos you could do with this with the old list back when we had Double Iris. Those don't really exist anymore. If you open really godlike, it's okay, but you don't use this as much as you did before. Supreme King Dragon Clearwing, Psyframe Omega, and Ignister Prominence, all just really good utility card. If you open really good, you can Omega, take a card out of their hand first turn. Ignister's a utility. You can get Luster from your deck just to get an extra monster, and deals with stuff without targeting. It's good for getting rid of Borreload. On Dueling Book, I had to get rid of a Cosmo Dark Planet once with this card, so you're glad it's there. Baguska, if you have really weak starting, you can sit on Baguska for a while, shut your opponent down, try to draw out of it. Tornado Dragon, this one's pretty good if you're going first and you can't make Naruto. It's obviously not as good as Naruto, but hitting field spells, hitting scales, hitting back row, it's all right. One Time Star, you never really summon this because there's always just something better to go into. Either Electromite, Baguska, there's very few situations where you'll want this, but it's there. Supreme King Dragon, Dark Rebellion, goes for OTKs, and no one really plays around this card. This card can't really be played around. If you leave a monster in attack position, you leave yourself vulnerable to that. Norito, Absolute Dragon, and Odd-Eyes Vortex Dragon. So ideally, this is what you want on your first turn. It's a little harder to get both of these out. It's still possible, but without Joker and Double Iris, it's slightly less consistent. But this negates anything, this negates spells and traps, and you just overlay your Astrographs into the Absolute Dragon to summon the Vortex Dragon. So basically you're just trying to make a really impressive first turn board. Then I played a Starving Venom. This is, it's alright, it's another utility card, it gives your board piercing, so it helps you go for OTKs still, and copying effects is respectable. It doesn't come up super often, but when it does, you'll be glad you have it. Side deck, this was really thrown together. Please don't do this side deck. Going first, if I'm afraid of hand traps, I was bringing in Gammas. This is something from last format. I don't really think that's very good because, one, you're playing Desires, and if you hit your driver, they're all dead. And two, almost all of your meaningful plays that your opponent will use a hand trap on, you'll already have a board, so you won't really have an opportunity to use that, so I'm probably going to drop those out. 2 Ghost Ogres and 2 Raw Sphere Mode. This is for the mirror match. These are decent going first. They're not great. And this card is phenomenal in the mirror because if they set up the Deco Talker and Vortex and Naruto board, this is about the only card in the game that can out it. And you're a Pendulum deck, so your normal summon doesn't really matter. Side deck 3 Wavering Eyes because I'm not sure how popular Pendulum decks will be. These will probably be moved to the main eventually, possibly over Desires. But for today, I sided them. 3 Evenly Matched, and a Solemn Judgment. Never brought this in. I'm citing this because I don't think it's good unless you know you're going first, because this is a combo deck and you need a lot of cards to go off, but we can play it now, so I figured I might as well try it. So that's what I played today, and thanks for watching. If you have any advice, put it down in the comments, and peace out, YouTube.